Meghan Markle's appearance on the Graham Norton show had been promoted as a light-hearted segment, celebrating her latest advocacy work. But from the moment she stepped on stage, something felt off. Dressed impeccably in a sleek designer outfit, Meghan smiled tightly at the audience before taking her seat. Graham, known for his quick wit and charm, welcomed her graciously. However, as the initial small talk wore off, his tone subtly shifted. What began as light banter about her projects turned toward deeper questions about her public image and controversies surrounding her time with the royal family. Meghan answered calmly at first, noting the challenges of balancing personal truth and public pressure, but Graham, perhaps emboldened by his reputation for sharp humor, pressed further, questioning whether her media presence was more self-serving than empowering. Meghan's smile wavered, and her jaw clenched slightly. "That's an unfair assumption," she replied curtly, her voice tinged with irritation. Graham tried to recover with a joke, but the tension had settled in. "I suppose every fairy tale has its drama," he quipped, gesturing lightly. Meghan responded with a steely gaze. "It's not a fairy tale when you're living under constant attack," she said, her words deliberate and cold. The audience, unsure how to react, gave a scattered laugh before going quiet. Meghan's frustration grew visible as Graham referenced past interviews she had given, suggesting she had at times contradicted herself, or perhaps the narrative just keeps changing to suit others. She shot back, her tone sharpening.
"And Graham?"
Still wearing a playful smirk. Countered with another comment implying that Meghan enjoyed the spotlight more than she let on. Her eyes narrowed. "Wanting to tell your story is not the same as craving attention," she said firmly. The polite veneer was cracking, and what was supposed to be a friendly segment quickly began spiraling into uncomfortable territory, with the other guests looking increasingly uncomfortable. Graham pivoted again, this time bringing up the royal family. "Do you think you handled things the best way possible?" he asked. Meghan exhaled deeply. "I did what I had to in order to protect my family," she said. Graham, unfazed, pushed again. "But you must understand, some people feel blindsided especially." The late Queen, at that, Meghan's composure slipped. "Respectfully, I won't sit here and have my integrity questioned under the guise of polite conversation," she said. The room fell quiet. Graham raised his eyebrows but didn't back down. "It's just a question something many people wonder," he said. Meghan's voice dropped. "And maybe people should wonder why a woman speaking out is treated as betrayal." The other guests shifted in their seats. The producers, watching backstage, exchanged nervous glances. What was meant to be a high-profile interview was quickly morphing into a tense, uncomfortable spectacle. Things escalated further when Graham, trying to balance the moment with humor, joked about how she and Prince Harry seemed to enjoy lawsuits more than holidays. The audience laughed, but Meghan didn't. "Is it funny to you that we had to fight for our safety and privacy in courtrooms?" she asked. Her tone was icy. Graham paused, caught off guard by the seriousness in her voice. "I meant it lightly," he said. Meghan responded, "Lightness at someone else's trauma is just mockery dressed in manners." That line landed heavy, and even Graham seemed at a loss for words. Meghan looked visibly upset, but held herself with controlled dignity. The audience grew increasingly uneasy, unsure of whether to support Graham's comedic edge or Meghan's growing fury. Producers whispered frantically in the wings, and the director was overheard asking whether they should cut the segment early. It was clear to everyone that the evening was unraveling fast. By the fifth exchange, Graham's signature charm had worn thin. Meghan began calling out the media's double standards, tying his jokes to a broader pattern of undermining outspoken women. "You'd never ask a man if he regrets defending his wife," she said sharply. "But with me, the question always comes loaded." Graham tried to interject, but Meghan continued. "You frame my story like a scandal. I frame it as survival." The audience began to murmur. One guest, a British actor sitting beside Meghan, glanced away awkwardly. Graham turned serious for a moment. "I didn't mean to make you feel attacked," he said. Meghan looked straight at him. "Then perhaps it's time to examine why it always feels that way." The back and forth had now become a philosophical and emotional standoff, one that no one had predicted. Viewers at home were already posting clips online. Social media buzzed with disbelief over how quickly the tone had shifted. The production team finally intervened, signaling Graham to wrap up the segment. He tried to do so with grace, thanking Meghan for coming and attempting to move to the next guest. But Meghan stood up before he could finish. "With respect, I think we're done here," she said, her voice calm but resolute. Removed her mic and handed it to a stunned assistant before walking off stage. The audience gasped. Graham sat frozen for a moment, clearly trying to process what had just occurred. He muttered something about moving on and tried to shift gears, but the air in the studio remained heavy. Online, the moment was already going viral. Clips of Meghan walking off and Graham's stunned face were replayed endlessly. Reactions were mixed. Some applauded Meghan for standing up for herself, while others accused her of being overly sensitive. Either way, it became one of the most dramatic moments in the show's history. Backstage, sources claimed Meghan was visibly shaken, but refused to speak further with the press. Her team issued a short statement that night. The Duchess came in good faith, was not treated with the respect due any guest. Graham, for his part, remained quiet for the rest of the evening. The next morning, headlines worldwide declared, "The shocking walkout." UK tabloids used it to reignite criticism against Meghan, while US outlets focused on her poise and the implications of being constantly scrutinized. Critics of Graham Norton said he crossed the line between humor and provocation. Supporters argued that if Meghan couldn't handle a few questions, she shouldn't appear on a talk show. But beneath the surface of entertainment, the event sparked a deeper conversation about how women, especially women of color, are treated in media spaces under the pretense of lighthearted fun. Later in the week, Meghan addressed the incident. In a written op-ed, "We live in a culture where women are invited to speak, but only if they conform to comfort," she wrote. "The moment we speak with conviction, we're labeled difficult, ungrateful, or unhinged." The piece resonated widely and became one of the most shared articles of the week. Graham eventually released a short statement, noting that he regretted the segment ended the way it did, and that it wasn't his intention to cause distress. But he didn't issue a formal apology. Still, the tension remained. Meghan's appearance had shifted the show's tone entirely, and many began questioning how talk shows balance candid conversation with respectful boundaries. The incident wasn't just a viral moment, it became a touchstone in discussions of media ethics, representation, and the performance of civility in front of live audiences. Behind closed doors, television executives reportedly reevaluated their guidelines for handling sensitive interviews. The production team at The Graham Norton Show faced internal reviews, and future guests requested tighter controls on interview topics. Meghan's departure from the studio without a word to the host, or producers, set a precedent. It was clear she wouldn't tolerate being publicly baited. And while some claimed she overreacted, others insisted she showed grace under pressure. The debate spread beyond entertainment circles into cultural commentary, with experts on race, gender, and media weighing in. Her fans praised her for reclaiming her voice, while her critics doubled down. Either way, Meghan had once again dominated the public narrative, not by seeking attention, but by refusing to be silenced when the spotlight turned hostile. What was meant to be a 15-minute segment turned into a global firestorm in the weeks that followed. The incident became a case study in media studies courses and a hot topic across podcasts and panel shows. Meghan's decision to walk off wasn't just viewed as defiance. It was a calculated stand against the tradition of entertainment at a guest's expense. Graham Norton's show continued, but many noticed a subtle shift in his tone with future guests. The public was left divided, yet undeniably engaged. Meghan, meanwhile, retreated from the limelight once again, choosing selective media appearances over wide publicity. The walk-off reminded everyone that respect and boundaries matter in comedy. For some, Meghan had crossed a line. For others, she had finally drawn one. But no one could deny the impact. It was a moment where grace met grit, and the cameras caught every second.